Hey cousin, welcome to CoCo Conjure. Here we talk about all things hoodoo, folklore, magic, and spiritual journeys. My goal is to give foundation to the novice and inspiration to the advanced practitioner. If you have not guessed already, my name is CoCo. Whether you're in the Great North Canada, the way South Mexico, or just traveling up and down 95 and Route 66 in the USA, cousin, I am blessed that you are tuning in today. Please be sure to subscribe or follow wherever you are listening and leave me a 5-star review. I promise you, I'll earn it. So before we get started, I'm just going to let y'all know right now, I got something to preach today. It is a folklore episode. I will be giving you 3 stories, but I got some things that need to be said. I've got some songs on my heart, child. And I'm going to embarrass myself by singing them. I'm going to embarrass myself by singing the songs. But by the analytics, it doesn't seem like, it's going to be too embarrassing because some of you cousins are from the way south, the deep south in America, I should say, or you are, a part of that like black church or Baptist church kind of place. And I know you guys are going to be singing along with me. So please sing along with me so it's not so embarrassing. But y'all, I was sitting at my altar and, giving my ancestral spirits some veneration, and a song just crept past my voice box and over my tongue. I swear to goodness, it's one of them old negro spirituals. Not that new stuff, not that Kirk Franklin. It's that old negro spiritual. It goes, oh, freedom. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Child, I was singing all 5 verses. No more moaning, no more weeping. I was singing all 5 verses. And it just, it just bubbled over my tongue. The other one I was singing. The other one I was singing was, there's a leak in this old building and my soul has got to move. My soul has got to move. My soul has got to move. There's a leak in this old building and my soul has got to move. I've got another building not made by man's hands. I don't even think that's the right melody, but child, it was deep in my spirit, so deep in my spirit. The ancestors were moving my mouth today, let me tell you. There was one more that had me, but for the life of me, I could not remember the melody. But the lyrics go something like, give me that old time religion is good enough for me. Ooh, I was feeling it. So, I don't know if y'all ever get them earworms or if the ancestors have ever moved your tongues, but them Negro spirituals, I grew up hearing in grandma's church down south, or just like on the radio driving with grandma to the Walmart, or it wasn't a Walmart then. It was, oh my God, I'm dating myself. It wasn't a Walmart then, but something like that down south. We had to drive miles because she lived in, the middle of nowhere off the highway. So going down the dirt roads to a cousin's house, and she would have the AM radio station on, and those kind of songs would be playing. And man, it just, I don't know. My heart was just moved today to sing them. Yeah. Cousin, I don't know if you knew this, but a lot of those songs were coded. Some of them were goodbye songs sung on plantations by the enslaved, to let others know that was their last day in the field, or, telling people where to meet up, when it was time to run for freedom. And I relearned about that when I visited the Harriet Tubman Museum in Dorchester County, Maryland. That's on the eastern shore of Maryland. I don't know if you guys knew, but that's where Harriet Tubman was born and raised. And before she was Harriet, when she was just, young Minty, she got hit on the head and started having these seizures. But what some took to as like pain and suffering, when she was having the seizures and couldn't quite get her body to move the way she wanted to. She took as the voice of God, and it was that voice that pushed her to sing her goodbye song, and become the legendary Harriet Tubman. And I plan on talking about Miss Tubman and her place as a legend in hoodoo in an upcoming episode, but that's not what we're talking about today. Like I said, these spirituals had me in a chokehold, and between that and learning about Harriet Tubman's faith and how that fueled her story and her legend, and just sitting with my ancestors, it got me thinking about this topic of Christianity, the Black church, and how some of us are recovering from church hurt. Now, I already heard some of y'all moan. Some of y'all like, listen, I did not come here for that. You supposed to be teaching me how to set lights, or you supposed to tell me stories about, how the Brer Rabbit got one over on the fox. This is not why I'm here. And I get it. Because for some of us, when people, when we rediscover this hoodoo life, or when we travel down alternate spiritual paths, they're either all about Jesus or they ain't about the church at all. And no matter where you fall on that spectrum, you have a reason to be there. And I respect that reason why you're there. Faith in God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit led ancestors like Harriet Tubman to search for freedom. And even though that's true, I can't deny that the church that surrounds that faith, the church that's being made of people, will bruise the soul so bad that it takes years of therapy and seeking spiritual fulfillment to repair it if you're in the wrong place, So as I was looking up folklore for this month, because every month I'm going to try to give you guys a couple folklore stories, just stories. I found some stories that feel like they speak to that struggle, this struggle of Black church and God and, church hurt and how we deal with it as a people, So this first story I found from my people, actually every story I'm going to read, I found in From My People, 400 Years of African American Folklore, that was written by Daryl Cumber Dance. I have already told you guys about Professor Dance in the episode Counting Souls. So if you want to hear more about her, please go back to that episode. It's another folklore episode, so you might like it. But I'm not going to do that again here. Usually Professor Dance collects folklore from like around Virginia, the DMV area, if you will. But for this story titled Can't Get In, she recounts the tale from her own memory. So without any further ado, I'm going to launch into the first story, again from My People, 400 Years of African American Folklore by Daryl Cumber Dance. Here is Can't Get In. This Negro went to a white church on Sunday. The minister's text was, "Come all ye that labor and are heavy laden." The minister cried out, "Come, come all. The gospel is free to all alike. God calls everyone to his kingdom. In God's house, everyone is welcome." The Negro was so surprised at this warm welcome that he jumped up and went up front to join. The preacher says real quiet to him, "Go in the study and I'll talk with you after the service." So the ushers showed the Negro to the study. After church service, the minister came in the study and said, "Now look, we don't want to rush this matter. I think you better take a week and reflect on this. Seek the Lord's guidance. See if he directs you to join this church." The next week, the Negro came back and met with the minister and said, yes, he was certain. He said, yes, he was certain. God had led him to join this church. But the white minister was adamant. He said, "I don't believe you have really consulted God. Take another week and be sure God has spoken to you." The minister was surprised but relieved when the Negro didn't come back. One day, several weeks later, he met with him on the street and said, "Yeah, man, I guess God told you that ours was not meant for a church for you." As a matter of fact, the Negro said, "when I talked to God about joining your church, God told me it might take you a long time to get in. I've been trying for 25 years to get into that church, and I still haven't made it yet." So if you've listened to my other folklore episodes, then you know I try to take lessons from every story. As fun as they are, as great as they are, I try to take a lesson from every story. And in this one, the lesson I learned was you have to realize when something is spiritually empty. just spiritually empty. You have to recognize when there is no love, there is no compassion, there is no God, there is no divine spirit in a place, in a space. When it comes to gathering with others to worship or to practice or, whatever your spiritual thing is. You got to realize that. And when you realize that you cannot fill your spiritual cup in that space, or there are guards at the waters, don't display the kind of behavior that is associated with the divine being you want to worship, or the morals that you yourself would like to carry through life, regardless of a God, then you need to just go on about your business. just go on about your business. He ain't try to get back in. He consulted, he spoke. The Negro consulted and spoke with God, consulted and spoke with, whatever divine being he was speaking to. And that divine being was like, yeah, I don't know them. Just like, you have to recognize when that's the case. Because I find that a lot of times, the church hurt or the spiritual group, whatever spiritual group you're part of, that kind of hurt comes from trying to force yourself into a place where your most authentic self cannot be loved, cannot be nurtured, and your cup cannot be filled. And the behavior of the people, the outright bigotry, in this story, it was racism, but it could be homophobia. It could be, like this just mean streak, this charismatic leader telling you that you are not enough without them. Those are all clues that your spiritual cup cannot be filled there. Just something to think about as we move on. This next story is another story from Professor Dance, same book, I told you. She notes that this is her mother's favorite, and she, again, is telling this one from memory. Here is I'll Go As Far As Memphis. So this black man had lived in Mississippi all his life, but times had gotten bad there with Jim Crow and the lynching and all of that. He decided he couldn't do it anymore, and he decided to do what most of his people did and move north. So he went north, and he was doing just fine. I mean, he was top tier, just fine. Then one of his friends called him and begged him to come back to Mississippi and help his folks, because things were not just hard, they were worse. So he thought about it. And finally he said, you know what? I'm going to have to take this to the Lord. I'm going to have to take this to God to figure out what to do. So a while later, his friend called him again, and he said, well, what did the Lord say? And the man told his friend, well, listen, I told the Lord that my friends in Mississippi needed my help. And I asked him if he would please, just please, go to the South and help them out. So what did God say? The friend inquired. The man said, the Lord told me I'll go just as far as Memphis. God was like, yeah, I'm only going as far as Memphis. You ain't catching me all the way down there. They crazy down there. I ain't inhabiting that place. So the lesson, some of us coming into hoodoo carry the joy of the Christian God and the understanding that through him all things are possible. Just like Harriet Tubman, just like Martin Luther King, just like all the other people in this country who are diehard Christians, right? But some of us coming into hoodoo, coming into our magic, carry with us this sadness, because of what was done to our people, because of the resulting gaps in our magic, because of an injustice that was performed under a supposedly all-powerful being. And that last one, that gaps in magic, that injustice, that's a hard one to reconcile and still have faith, But in order to fully fulfill yourself spiritually, you got to untangle that. Now, I'm not going to preach to you about how you should untangle that. In my story, you heard, I decided that I would not follow a God that allows for injustice. And I got to the point where I was full on nihilistic, and I'm okay with the fact that this world might be Mississippi and might be godless, just like Mississippi in this story. Like, I'm okay with that. But that's up for you to decide how you want to untangle that. If that's a hurt that you carry, I'm just saying, cousin, regardless of how you untangle that, understand that you must, because we cannot seek peace. We cannot access our magic while still holding on to generational trauma and anger. So when I found that story, that reminded me of another tale found in Daryl Cumber Dance's book, From My People. This one is called Uncle Jim Speaks His Mind. For this story, Professor Dance pulled it from, hold on, let me find it. She pulled it from Worser Days and Better Times by J. Mason Brewer. So that might be a book all on its own that might be worth picking up. But the folktale goes something like this. So a white preacher was preaching to a group of slaves one night. And he was talking about the gates of gold that the white folks was going to walk through when they got to heaven, and the streets of silver and gold they was going to walk on when they got to heaven. And he stopped and he said, "Now you darkies need not worry, for God has some mighty good asphalt streets and some cement streets for you to walk on." When he finished preaching about where the white folks would walk and where the black folks were going to go, he called on Uncle Jim, a very old slave, oldest slave on the plantation, to lead the congregation in prayer. So old Jim got down on his knees and he said in a very feeble voice, "Lord, I heard the preacher talking about where the white folks would walk. And I heard us poor slaves was going to walk somewhere else. But Lord, I done come up like the bulrushes with my head bowed down, like the rushes covered with the morning dew. Lord, I know that it's I's, your child's, and when I get to heaven, I's going to walk anywhere I damn well please." Uncle Jim was not having that mess. He was not having it. He was going to walk anywhere he damn well pleased. I don't blame him. And I think Uncle Jim's story is the struggle in the nutshell, right? The struggle of church hurt, of faith, of all of that. It's a constant and relentless narrative that you are not good enough or worthy enough for God's love, Now, for Uncle Jim, it's because he was black and a slave, right? And that's a whole other conversation we can talk about. But for the now times, for right now, it's this idea that, you're not good enough because you're dress doesn't cover to your knees and you're immodest. You're not good enough because you love somebody who has the same genitalia as you do. You're not good enough because, you know, I don't know, you decide that you want to have a glass of wine, or you want to, like, whatever it is, you're just not good enough. You are sinful and you're not good enough. You know, unless you give that 10%, unless you go to church every Sunday, unless you're at Bible study every Wednesday, unless you believe and express that belief the same way everyone else does, you are not good enough. That's a hard pill to swallow. Now, listen, some of us find peace there. Some of us find peace in this faith in that church because we fit the mold. And if that's you, peace continue to be with you, cousin. May it fill your spiritual cup. May it strengthen your mojo. But for the rest of us, for the cousin who needs to hear it, we are allowed to navigate this life without someone trying to make us feel guilty for being human, or having human experiences, or for just being ourselves. No matter where your faith lies or how you express it, no other human being can judge you for living your life fully, or for navigating the outright misery life can be sometimes. Especially when we're all operating on faith. None of us know for sure what awaits us when we die. We hope that there's gold sidewalks. We hope that there are gold gates. We hope and pray that there is a heaven, but no one can tell you for sure. Even all of us who are sitting here saying we talking to our ancestors, if an ancestor told you 100% for sure that there is a heaven, please send me proof. Please put it in a comment, right? Even how ancestors work, we're all operating on faith. We're all operating on our personal gnosis here. And when death comes to take us in the end, he's not going to ask if you made right with God. He's not going to ask, what do you believe? He's just going to take you. And I don't know about you, but before I be a slave to the fear of living a full life, I'd rather be buried in my grave and let Lord Death take me home to the ancestors so my spirit can be free and at peace. So let's live as best of a life we can. Let's live as our best selves possible. Let's have a full spiritual life. Love loud, show mercy, show compassion to others, and die knowing that you did the best you could while you were here. Okay. So what do we have here? Okay, so if you've made it this far into the podcast and you got past the sermon, congratulations. You know what's coming next. If you don't know, I'm going to tell you. At this point, I normally read a question from the Reddit, the Facebook, the boards, the internets, and I try to my best to answer it. I have, in fact, read these questions ahead of time, usually like a month or so in advance, and I just kind of paste it in the document that pertains to whatever topic I'm going to talk about. So it's been a while since I've read these, and because of that, you're going to get my honest review, my honest opinion. So this first one comes from Reddit. It's called Baby Witch Help. So it's not necessarily connected to hoodoo, but if I put it in this document, it must be for a reason. And here's what it says. It says, I'm conflicted between religion and witchcraft. Could use some advice, maybe. Hi, I'm 15 and raised Catholic, for some context. As I've gotten older, I've noticed I'm more and more drawn to the idea of being Wiccan or practicing witchcraft. At first, I'd like to say it started just as a curiosity. It's taboo, apparently, so why wouldn't I be attracted to it? But in all honesty, looking back, I think it's because it's always been a part of me. I feel like such a connection to the earth, and it just feels right. But I'm also born and raised Catholic, even went to a Catholic school, and I still resonate with the idea of God, and I'm often conflicted by what I really want. I personally don't believe that I'll be condemned and sent to hell just because I was interested in a topic, but at the same time, I just don't know. I'm not sure how to deal with this or even where to begin. I've also tried doing some research, but my mom confiscated my only book. She opened a random page and apparently she saw something she said was not very nice about the Bible. And I've tried videos to learn, and watching stuff is such a drag compared to written media. Okay. Okay, so if I pulled this in here, I think it's because even though this person wants to be Wiccan or a witch, and we ain't that, I feel like it still fits with what some of us go through, especially since hoodoo, more than probably other practices, folk magic, hoodoo, is so interconnected with the Bible, with Christianity, and it's hard sometimes to navigate that, I know I found it hard. Maybe I should speak for myself. At first, I found it very hard because this is not something I believed or something that I want to follow. But it does sound like this friend, 15 and Catholic, does, still follow this idea of a God, the Abrahamic God, I should say, and is conflicted. So if you're like this person, I want to tell you that, especially in hoodoo, it's okay. It's okay to believe in the Abrahamic God. You don't have to. Some people would say that you can't do hoodoo unless you do believe in the Abrahamic God. But it's okay to hold on to previous religious frameworks if they are useful and good to you. That's okay. And then just layer other spiritual practices on top of that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a whole section of Christian witches that specifically and only pray to the Abrahamic God, use the Bible, like they get their spells from the Bible, etc. And then, of course, like I said, hoodoo is so tightly related to that. So if you're in that in between, if you're conflicted, remember I said that the spectrum of all about Jesus or not about the church at all. If you're fitting somewhere in the middle of that spectrum, then hoodoo is and hoodoo is open to you, because it is, I wouldn't say it's gate kept, but it's closely guarded. And hoodoo is open to you. This is a perfect place for you to be, because you can still work within those frameworks and explore yourself spiritually. You just have to, like I said, untangle the idea that working magic, working outside of, the 1, 2, 3, the ABC, the mold of Christianity will somehow condemn you to hell. If you can get past that and you can see that this is just a spiritual expression and you are expressing your faith and belief in another way, then hoodoo can be good for you if it's open to you. That said, if you're in a place where others around you are not accepting of that, then you're gonna have to wait. There's no greater hate in this world than evangelical love. So if someone around you is not tolerant of the fact that you're willing and ready to express yourself other ways, outside of the mold of Christianity, especially if they're evangelical, and this person is your parent or your guardian, or, you depend on this person to eat, survive, and thrive, then you're going to have to wait, or you're going to have to lie. You're going to have to lie. You're going to have to sneak around. And if you're okay with that, then podcasts like mine, there's a whole playlist on my channel where I call Hoodoo Resources, so you can go to and you can learn. Books that you would come across are not going to be spell books. They're not going to be the, hoodoo for beginners. They're going to be the Zora Neale Hurston. They're going to be the Richard M. Dorsons. They're going to be the more academic stuff that you would want to read, because in those texts, you would just be seen as, oh, you just like folklore. Oh, you just like a good fiction story. Oh, you just like, to read about, study about old time faith practices. Give me that old time religion. That's all you want, So if that's you, that's cool. If you're lighting a candle, you don't have to have the mountains of herbs and things like that you might see on Instagram. As a matter of fact, you shouldn't have mountains of herbs like you see on Instagram. It should be, hoodoo is efficient and subtle, so you could probably get away with stuff like that, but you're not doing the big rituals. You're not going to be doing all that big stuff. You're just going to do the small things that fill your cup until you can get out on your own. So yeah, I hope this friend, because I'm never going to respond to this friend and the baby witch help, but I hope this friend figured it out. And if you're like this friend and you're trying to figure yourself out spiritually and you don't know, you're not on the extreme ends of the spectrum, then I hope my advice helps you out. Okay, last question. This one comes from Conjure, Rootwork, and Hoodoo. And I got to tell you, it's one of my favorite places to be. That and the sister subreddit are my favorite. I pull from them all the time. I'm always in there. You can always find me in there somewhere. Okay, so this question says, Hoodoo and Catholicism, is it appropriate for non-African Americans to use hoodoo for profit? Child. Okay. So the question says, hello, everyone. Sorry to bother you. I am not Black or African American myself, but I've always been interested in hoodoo related culture. In the past few days, a person has appeared in my social circle and claims to use hoodoo to help you pray to saints, that's Catholic saints, and make money from it. He is not Black or African American and has no connection with American culture. Doesn't matter. I'm confused about this. Is this possible or morally acceptable behavior? Whew, child. To get to the meat of it, no, it's not morally acceptable to be a culture vulture. They said this person he is not Black or African American and has no connection with American culture. No. No. It's not okay to be a culture vulture. But there is some information missing here, I will say. So was this person, okay, to get into hoodoo, to be a hoodoo, a lot of people have different takes on this. Here's mine. You either, hoodoo is open to you if you're a part of the culture. Okay. Meaning if you're a part of Black American culture. Now, there are plenty of people who are not Black, but are in the culture. Y'all ever saw that TikTok that's like, we all in the house. We got Daquan, we got Tavon, we got Mark. And Mark is like some random white kid in the room, right? And, but Mark rocks with us, so we rock with Mark. Like, Mark is a part of the culture. You want to feel what I'm saying? Like, he doesn't look like you. He doesn't, he's going to crisp up in the sun, but he's a part of the culture. He's a part of the space. He's respectful, all that stuff. So, there are plenty of people out there who are like that. But to me, to get past the guardians at the gate, to be a part of hoodoo, you either have to be born into the culture or grown into the culture. Like you were raised up in the culture. Other ways to practice hoodoo, like to get into practicing hoodoo itself, not just being a part of the conversation, but being a hoodoo, you learn by initiation, which again, there are plenty of people who were taught who are not Black American, or you have to learn, you self-initiate. You got people like me, like myself. I told you in the first episode, I learned by study and by talking to my living legends, right? I've said it many times. But I guess the difference here is I'm not trying to sell my practice. Like I'm not trying to convince anybody that I'm powerful and I have the ear of saints and God. Like I'm not trying to convince anyone of that. So I come back to the last question. Is this possible? It's possible, sure, that this person who's not American or Black was initiated into hoodoo by someone who thought that they were worthy to pass down their magic to. Sure. Is it morally acceptable if this is not the case? No, it's not morally acceptable. They're a culture vulture. I guess I have a fundamental issue with it because they are making money by praying to saints for someone else, right? I have an issue with that in general. Like, and they're using hoodoo to do it. Anyone can pray to a saint. You can buy a saint card from any occult shop, from Amazon. You can buy the saint candle. Like, so that just seems wrong to me. Like, that just seems wrong to me somehow. And I guess the argument can be made that some people are heard more by divine forces, divine spirits than others. But I don't know about selling prayers. Something about that seems wrong. Something about that just don't seem right to me. So yeah, I guess that answers the question. Is it possible that this non-Black American is in hoodoo? Sure, it's possible. Someone probably taught them. Is it possible? Is it morally acceptable? If that's not the case, then no, it's not morally acceptable at all. Because they're culture vulturing. They're profiting off of a magical movement that is well known in order to feed themselves, which doesn't make sense to me. At that point, just be a witch. Anyone can be a witch. Like, you don't have to use hoodoo. You can do whatever you want. You could just be a witch and say, I'm a witch. I'm going to sell you this thing. So yeah. All right. We made it to the end. Thank you for staying with me as I gave a little sermon. I appreciate it. I don't know why it was in my heart, but it was in my spirit today to speak on how, detrimental it can be when you hold on to spiritual things that don't fill you up. Before we go, cousin, I wanted to let you know you deserve the world. You deserve a full cup. You deserve to pursue things that will spiritually fill you, and you deserve to be where you are welcomed and loved, and where you are wanted as you are most authentic. And if you call for your blessings, they will come to you. Talk to you guys later.